On my wedding day, my sister threw her champagne in my face and screamed I deserved none of it, so I made one quiet phone call that night. They thought my mother's words, "She's hurting, ignore it," would work one last time. They never saw the trap I'd set, and by morning their entire world was gone. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. My hands were shaking. It wasn't just wedding day nerves. My blood sugar was crashing again. I hadn't had time to eat, not with my mother, Brenda, hovering all morning, adjusting my veil with one hand while holding her phone in the other, clearly texting my sister, Chloe. "Miranda, darling, you look pale," Brenda said, her eyes flicking to the door. "Are you sure you're feeling all right?" "I'm fine, Mom, just need a minute." I clutched the edge of the dressing table, the scent of lilies and hairspray making me dizzy. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I was marrying Brian, a man who was my rock, my partner in every sense. I had built a successful tech consulting firm from nothing. I was 32, I was in love, and I was, for the first time, truly happy. And my family hated me for it. The ceremony was a blur of forced smiles and held-back tears, the good kind. Brian's vows were so heartfelt, so steady, that I forgot about the knot in my stomach. I forgot about the exorbitant cost of the venue, a cost I had covered entirely. I forgot about the fact that my own sister, my maid of honor, had not spoken a single, genuine word to me all day. The crisis hit, as it always did, when the attention was firmly on me. We were at the reception. The champagne had been poured and the toasts had begun. Brian's business partner gave a funny, warm speech. My best friend, Pamela, made me cry with a beautiful story from our college days. Then, Chloe stood up. She swayed, holding her flute. She was 28, a freelance graphic designer who, to my knowledge, had never had a paying client. She was beautiful, fragile, and the perpetually defended golden child of our family. "To Miranda," she slurred, her voice dripping with a sweetness that was more toxic than poison. "My big sister, she always gets exactly what she wants, doesn't she?" A few people chuckled nervously. Brian's hand found mine under the table. His grip was tight. "I mean, look at this." Chloe gestured around the grand hall, her arms sweeping wide. "This, all of this, and a perfect new husband." She locked eyes with me, her smile faltering, revealing the raw, ugly envy underneath. It's amazing what some people get." "Chloe, sit down," my mother hissed from her table. "No," Chloe shrieked, her voice cracking. She took a step toward me, her face contorting. "No, I won't. You don't deserve this, Miranda. You don't deserve any of this." And with that, she lunged forward and threw the contents of her glass directly in my face. The room went silent. The icy cold champagne dripped from my hair onto my lashes and down the bodice of my custom-made gown. I sat there, frozen in shock, the smell of alcohol and sugar stinging my nose. Brian was on his feet instantly. "What the hell is wrong with you?" But before he could take a step, our mother, Brenda, was there. She didn't rush to Chloe, who was now sobbing hysterically. She didn't grab a napkin for me. She rushed to my side, grabbing my arm in a vice grip. "Not now, Miranda," she whispered, her voice frantic as she pulled me close. "She's hurting, just ignore it. Don't make a scene. We'll handle this later." Ignore it. The same two words she had used my entire life. Ignore it when Chloe stole my term paper and I got suspended. Ignore it when Chloe borrowed my car and crashed it. Ignore it when Chloe ran up $20,000 on a credit card I had co-signed for her. I looked at my mother, at her desperate, pleading eyes, and I felt something inside me finally snap. The dizziness was gone, replaced by a glacial calm. I slowly, deliberately picked up my own napkin. I didn't wipe my face. I simply looked at her. "You're right, Mom," I said, my voice terrifyingly quiet. "I won't make a scene." I stood up, my wet dress clinging to me. I looked at Brian, whose face was a mask of thunder. "I'll be right back," I told him. Then I turned and walked out of my own wedding reception, leaving the entire room in stunned silence. I didn't go to the washroom to cry. I walked straight to the bridal suite, my heels clicking on the marble floor. I sat on the edge of the perfectly made bed, the scent of roses in the air, and pulled my laptop out of my overnight bag. My mother thought I would ignore it. She thought I would be the good, strong daughter and absorb this too. She was wrong. This wasn't just about a ruined dress or a public humiliation. This was tea. The culmination of a lifetime of being the family bank, the family therapist, and the family punching bag. The betrayal wasn't the champagne in my face. The betrayal was my mother's hand on my arm, protecting the abuser instead of the victim. The hotel suite was silent save for the soft hum of the air conditioning. I sat there for 10, maybe 15 minutes. The adrenaline from the confrontation had subsided, leaving behind a cold, sharp clarity. My dress was ruined. Sticky champagne was drying in my hair, and I could feel a mascara tear finally tracking a clean path through the mess on my cheek. But I wasn't crying. I was working. My laptop screen glowed in the dim room. I logged into my personal bank account, the one I used for family management, as my business partner, Nora, called it. It was a term she'd coined with a heavy dose of irony. There they were, 2 large, recurring monthly transfers scheduled for the first of every month. Tomorrow. The first was for $4,500. Destination, Chloe's checking account. It was her allowance, a word that made me sick. It covered her trendy downtown apartment, her leased white convertible, her grocery delivery, her business, software subscriptions, her entire life. The second was for $3,800. Destination, Brenda's mortgage lender. It was the payment for my mother's sprawling 5-bedroom house, the house I grew up in, the house she couldn't bear to part with after my father left, even though it was just her and, intermittently, Chloe. I had set these up 6 years ago when my firm first turned a major profit. It was supposed to be temporary. It had become an expectation. My finger hovered over the cancel button. I thought of Chloe's screaming face. I thought of the sting of the champagne. But most of all, I thought of my mother's words. "She's hurting. Ignore it." I clicked cancel. I clicked cancel again. A pop-up asked, "Are you sure?" I typed yes in the confirmation box. A small, simple digital receipt appeared. "Your recurring payment has been canceled." I took a deep, shuddering breath. I then opened another tab and logged into my primary business account, the one Nora and I managed. I initiated a transfer, moving the substantial liquid buffer I kept in my personal account, the money that usually fed the family beast, into a new, high-yield savings account. An account I had opened last week under my new married name and Brian's. An account my mother and sister knew nothing about. There was a soft knock on the door. "Miranda, honey, it's me." "Brian." I closed the laptop. "Come in." He walked in, his tuxedo jacket gone, his tie loosened. He had a glass of water and a small plate with a dinner roll on it. He didn't say, "Are you okay?" He didn't say, "That was insane." He just wordlessly handed me the plate and the water. "You need to eat," he said, sitting beside me. I ate the roll in 3 bites, my stomach clenching in gratitude. I drank the entire glass of water. "I'm so sorry, Brian," I whispered, the first crack in my voice appearing. "Our wedding, she ruined it." "She didn't ruin it," he said, taking my hand. He looked at the wet, sticky mess of my dress. "She made a fool of herself. We're married, that's all that matters." He paused, his gaze growing serious. "But we have a problem. Your mother is trying to fix this. She's demanding that you come back out and that Chloe wants to apologize." I shook my head. "No, it's not a real apology. It's just damage control because her public tantrum embarrassed Mom." "I know," he said. "Pamela and Nora are running interference. They're telling everyone you had a migraine from the stress. Pamela is currently giving your mother a very clinical-sounding lecture on emotional triggers." A small, watery laugh escaped me. Of course she was. Pamela, a psychiatrist, had been trying to get me to see the toxic cycle for years. Nora, my CFO, had been showing me the spreadsheets, begging me to stop the financial bleeding. "What do you want to do, Miranda?" Brian asked, his thumb rubbing the back of my hand. "We can leave, right now. We can go to the airport. Our flight is at 7 a.m. We can just be gone." I looked at him, my partner. The man who saw me, not as an ATM, not as an emotional shock absorber, but as a person. "I'm not going back out there," I said, my voice hardening with resolve. I'm done with all of it." "Good," he said simply. "Then let's get you out of this dress." As I stood up to unzip the gown, a thought, a memory surfaced. It was something Nora had said to me last week when we were finalizing the new joint account. We were looking at the massive outflows to my family, and she'd shaken her head. "You know, Miranda," she'd said, "the thing about automated systems is that they're beautifully impersonal. They just stop when you tell them to. No drama, no begging, just an ending." They had forgotten one crucial thing. I wasn't just the strong daughter. I was the 1WH. O built a tech empire from scratch. I knew, better than anyone, how systems worked, and I had just triggered a system of my own. The quietest action is sometimes the most final. To understand why I did it, you have to understand what I'd been doing for the last 10 years. I am 4 years older than Chloe. When our father left, I was 16 and Chloe was 12. He didn't just leave, he emptied the bank accounts and disappeared. We were left with a mortgage we couldn't pay and a mother, Brenda, who fell apart. I stepped up, it wasn't even a choice. I was the strong one. At 16, I got a job bagging groceries. At 17, I was working 30 hours a week as a waitress while maintaining a 4 GPA to get a scholarship. I did it. I got a full ride to a state university, but I chose one close to home so I could come back every weekend to work and help Mom. Chloe was hurting. She was the sensitive one. While I was balancing pre-med classes and double shifts, Chloe was discovering high school parties. When she got caught drinking, Brenda told the principal Chloe was just acting out from the trauma of the divorce. When I got a B+ on an organic chemistry exam because I'd been up all night with Mom, who was having a panic attack, Brenda told me, "You should have studied harder, Miranda. You know you have to be the rock." Chloe didn't go to college. She was too creative for a traditional structure. She wanted to be a graphic designer, so I paid for her top-of-the-line laptop. Then she wanted to be a photographer. I paid for the cameras and the lenses. Then she was going to be an influencer. I paid for the least convertible she needed for her brand. All this time, I had moved back home after college. I was working a grueling entry-level tech job, saving every penny. I founded my consulting firm at 25 from the desk in my childhood bedroom. By 29, I had landed 2 massive, multi-year contracts that set me for life. The first thing I did, I paid off my mother's looming foreclosure and took over the mortgage payments. I moved out, finally, into my own apartment, and I set up the allowance for Chloe so she would stop bothering Mom for money. My sacrifices were reframed as my duty. My success wasn't a triumph, it was a resource. Brenda, my mother, was the architect of this system. She was polished, kind, and beloved in her social circle. She was the picture of a resilient single mother, but behind closed doors, she was a master of emotional manipulation. She never asked for money, she would just sigh over coffee. "It's just, the property taxes are so high, I don't know how I'll manage. I suppose I'll have to sell the house. It's a shame, all your memories." Or, "Chloe is just so fragile, Miranda. This new business idea, she's so passionate. It would break her heart if she couldn't afford the software. You know how she gets when she's depressed." The antagonist wasn't just Chloe, with her obvious, screaming envy. The true antagonist was my mother, the one who loaded the weapon and handed it to her. I remember the first time I brought Brian home. Chloe was immediately cold. She spent the entire dinner texting and rolling her eyes. But Brenda was the one who pulled me into the kitchen as I was clearing plates. "He's very intense, isn't he?" she'd said, not meeting my eye. "He's a corporate lawyer, Mom. He's direct. I like that." "Yes, well," she said, scrubbing a plate too hard. "He seems very focused on money. His suit looks expensive. I just hope he's not with you for the wrong reasons, darling. You're so generous, and people can take advantage of that." The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. She wasn't worried he would take advantage of me. She was worried he would take advantage of her resource. She was worried he'd be a competitor for my bank account. And she was right to be worried. Brian saw it all immediately. He saw the way I tensed up when my mother called. He saw the casual, constant stream of emergencies from Chloe. He was the one who sat down with me and my bank statements. "Miranda," he'd said, his voice gentle but firm, "do you realize you've given them over $500,000 in the last 5 years? This isn't helping. This is enabling. They've built their entire lives on top of you." He was right, and that's when my friend Pamela, the psychiatrist, helped me see the dynamic for what it was. "Your mother has cast you as the provider and Chloe as the child," she'd explained. "In this story, you are not allowed to have needs. You are only allowed to meet needs. Your wedding, your success, your happiness, it breaks the story. Chloe isn't just jealous. She's terrified. If you're your own person, who's going to fund her life? And your mother is terrified too. She's losing control of her primary asset." The champagne in the face wasn't an isolated incident. It was the system breaking. It was Chloe and my mother realizing that my marriage tea. O'Brien wasn't just a party. It was a transfer of allegiance. I was building my own family. And in their world, there wasn't room for that. The 7 a.m. flight to the Maldives was blessedly empty. Brian and I were in first class, a luxury I'd long been able to afford but rarely spent on myself. This, however, was non-negotiable. Phones off, Brian said, holding his up. Both of them. Work, personal, all of it. We land in Malé in 12 hours, and we don't turn them back on until then. What about Nora? I asked, my work phone feeling heavy in my hand. Nora knows the plan. She's running the company. She will only call the hotel's landline if the building is literally on fire. Your family, he added, his voice firm, is not an emergency. I powered down both devices. The sense of relief was immediate and overwhelming. As the plane took off, I fell asleep on Brian's shoulder and didn't wake up until the flight attendant was serving lunch. We spent the first 3 days of our honeymoon in a blissful, disconnected bubble. Our overwater bungalow was paradise. We snorkeled, we ate incredible food, and we really talked about our future. We didn't mention Chloe. We didn't mention Brenda. But the shift from passive victim to active strategist had already happened. The clever trap wasn't just canceling the payments. That was only phase 1. The trap was the silence that followed. I knew my mother and sister. Their panic would be building with every passing hour. The first of the month had come and gone. It was now the third. I had given Nora, my CFO and business partner, a very specific set of instructions before I left. She was my trap setter. While I was swimming in the Indian Ocean, Nora was at her desk in our office. She had access to the financials of the consulting company I had set up for Chloe 5 years ago. It was a legal shell, an LLC, designed so I could pay her for design work and have it look legitimate. It was the vehicle for her allowance. So, what exactly am I looking for? Nora had asked. You're not looking, you're preparing, I'd explained. When they call you, and they will call you because my phone will be off, I want you to be helpful. I want you to look into the payment issue. And I want you to document everything. But the most important thing is the lease. The lease on her convertible. No, I'd said, the lease on her apartment. Chloe lived in a high-rise luxury building. I had co-signed the lease 3 years ago. A stupid mistake from a moment of weakness when Brenda had cried about Chloe's depression and how a safe, new place would help her. That lease was up for renewal in 2 months. But the real leverage was something else. My mother's house. I wasn't just paying the mortgage. My name was on the deed. After my father left, the house went into foreclosure. I had bought it from the bank. My mother was, legally, my tenant. We had a formal, notarized rental agreement, something my lawyer at the time insisted on for tax purposes. I had been charging her a rent of $1, exactly matching the mortgage payment I was making on her behalf. They had forgotten this, or more likely, they had chosen to ignore it. They saw the house as theirs, and me as the bank who paid for it. They had forgotten that the strong one was also the smart one. On the 4th day of our honeymoon, I allowed myself 1 hour. I turned on my laptop and connected to the hotel Wi-Fi. I didn't check my personal email. I logged into the secure portal Nora and I used. A new file was waiting for me, Project Nightingale, our code name for it. I opened it. Nora, ever efficient, had itemized everything. 10:04 a.m. Nav first, voice message from Chloe. Crying, card declined at Starbucks. 10:30 a.m. Nav first, voice message from Chloe. Yelling, card declined for her car payment. 11:15 a.m. Nav first, voice message from Brenda. Just a bit worried. 2:00 p.m. Nav first, voice message from Chloe. Screaming, rent payment portal shows rejected. 4:00 p.m. Now first, voice message from Brenda. Panicked. Mortgage payment has been returned. Then the emails, dozens of them, from Chloe, from Brenda, to me, to my work account, to the general info account for my company. Miranda, this isn't funny. Your phone is off, answer me. The bank has made a terrible mistake. You need to fix this now. Chloe is having a panic attack. How could you do this? Then an email from Brenda to Nora. Subject, urgent, Miranda's accounts. Nora, dear, I'm so sorry to bother you. We can't reach Miranda. I think her bank has frozen her accounts. There's a terrible error, and my mortgage payment was returned, and Chloe's rent hasn't gone through. Can you please look into it? It must be a technical glitch. Please call me. Nora's reply was a masterpiece of corporate ambiguity. Hi, Brenda. Miranda is on her honeymoon and completely unreachable. I don't have access to her personal finances, but I'll see what I can find out about the company accounts. Nora. Then the investigation began. Nora Ha. Dee logged into the Shell LLC I'd set up for Chloe. She had, as requested, pulled the last 3 years of business expenses that Chloe had filed. It was worse than I thought. $40,000 at designer boutiques, $15,000 on business lunches at the city's most expensive restaurants, $22,000 in trips to Miami, Ibiza, and Cabo. And the final piece, a $5,000 consulting fee paid to a man I'd never heard of. Nora, being Nora, had run a background check on the name. My blood ran cold. The man was a disbarred lawyer, one who had lost his license for defrauding elderly clients. He specialized in asset management and inheritance. Chloe wasn't just spending my money. She was actively consulting with a con artist on how to get more of it. I closed the laptop. My investigation was over. It was time to prepare for the confrontation. We returned from the Maldives 2 weeks later, tanned and relaxed. We didn't go home to our apartment. We checked into a suite at the Four Seasons under Brian's name. I kept my phones off. I let them simmer for one more day. The silence, I knew, would be driving them insane. The first of the month was a memory. It was now the 17th. By this point, Chloe would have received a formal notice from her landlord. Brenda would be getting daily, menacing calls from her mortgage lender. I had Nora send one, simple email to my mother and sister. Subject, meeting Miranda has returned. She will meet you at her office tomorrow at 10:00 a.m. Do not be late. My office was my territory. It was a large, glass-walled space overlooking the city. When Brenda and Chloe arrived, they were ushered into the main boardroom. I wasn't there. I made them wait for 15 minutes. When I finally walked in, Brian was at my side, carrying a briefcase. Nora and Pamela were also with me. My mother and sister looked wrecked. Chloe's eyes were puffy, her designer clothes rumpled. Brenda looked like she had aged 10 years. Miranda, Brenda burst out, standing up. Thank God, what is going on? Your phone, the banks, it's a nightmare. Chloe just glared at me from her seat. So, you're finally done with your precious vacation. Our lives are falling apart. I didn't sit. I stood at the head of the table. Brian, Nora, and Pamela stood with me. It was a united front. It's not a nightmare, Mom, I said, my voice calm and even. And it's not a bank error. I stopped the payments. The blood drained from my mother's face. What? What do you mean? You stopped them? I canceled the recurring transfers. The one for Chloe's allowance, and the one for your mortgage. Chloe shot out of her chair. You what? You can't do that. My rent, my car. Sit down, Chloe, Brian said, his voice quiet but carrying the unmistakable command of a senior lawyer. She, for the first time in her life, looked intimidated and sat. I don't understand, Miranda, Brenda stammered, sinking into her chair. Why was it? Was it about the wedding? Chloe was upset. She was hurting. Stop, I said. Do not say that word. She wasn't hurting. She was envious and cruel, and you were her accomplice. But no, Mom, this isn't about the champagne. That was just the wake-up call. I looked at Chloe. I know who you've been meeting with. Her mask of defiance wavered. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about Mr. Reynolds, I said. The disbarred lawyer, the fraud specialist. You've been paying him a consulting fee from the LLC I set up for you. An LLC funded 100% by me. Nora placed a single printed invoice on the table and slid it in front of Chloe. My sister's face went white. Brenda looked at the paper, confused. Who is this man? He's a con artist, Mom, I said. And Chloe hired him, using my money, to find a way to get more of my money. I'm guessing he was investigating how to have me declared incompetent, or perhaps how to contest my will, or maybe just how to get access to my business accounts. Brenda looked at Chloe, horrified. Chloe, is that true? Chloe's composure shattered. She didn't cry. She raged. So what if it is? He said you were hiding assets. He said you owed us. You built your entire company on our emotional distress. He said we had a claim. A claim? I laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. A claim on what? On the money I earned while you were in Cabo, on the company I built while you were sleeping until noon. You have no claim, you have nothing. The LLC is in my name, the car is leased. In my name. The apartment, I said, leaning forward, is co-signed by me, and I will not be re-signing the lease. Chloe's face crumpled. This, finally, had landed. And you, Mom, I said, turning to her. Miranda, I had no idea, she whispered, tears welling. This is all Chloe. I didn't know. You knew, I said flatly. You may not have known about Mr. Reynolds, but you knew. You knew you were living in a house I paid for. You knew you were enabling your daughter to steal from. Her sister. You've been the CEO of this toxic little operation for years. I let the silence hang. Pamela, my friend, the psychiatrist, watched my mother with a keen, clinical gaze. So what now? Brenda whispered. You're just cutting us off, your family. The family I knew, I said, was a financial arrangement, and I am terminating the contract. Chloe suddenly lashed out, her voice a desperate, childish wail. You can't just throw us out. You'll be sued, Mr. Reynolds said. Mr. Reynolds? Brian interrupted, finally speaking. He opened his briefcase and took out a file, dropping it on the table with a heavy thud. Is currently under investigation by the state bar again, this time for conspiracy to commit fraud. Our firm has already filed a complaint with your invoices as evidence. If I were you, Chloe, I would never say that man's name again. Ever. Chloe stared at the file as if it were a snake. I had made my first move. The lies were exposed. The threats were neutered. And for the first time, my mother and sister were looking at me not as their daughter or their sister, but as what I had become, a person they had, very foolishly, mistaken for a fool. The aftermath of that meeting was not the tearful apology I once might have craved. It was a new, desperate kind of warfare. My mother, realizing her guilt trips were now useless, went into full-blown victim mode. She called my aunts, my uncles, my cousins. She told them I had snapped, that my new husband, Brian, had turned me against them, that I had, out of pure malice, thrown my sick, grieving mother and struggling sister out onto the street. My phone, which I had finally turned back on, was a relentless stream of toxic messages from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, telling me I was a disgrace and heartless. Chloe, meanwhile, tried a different tactic. She went to the press, or, more accurately, a local gossip blog. She gave them an anonymous tip that the CEO of Miranda Tech, my firm, was financially abusing her elderly mother. It was a stupid, desperate move. Nora handled it. She sent the blogger a single package. It contained the mortgage documents showing I was the owner, the $1 rental agreement showing Mom was my tenant, and a few choice, anonymized invoices from Chloe's business, expenses, namely the $8,000 charged from a boutique in Paris. The story was pulled within an hour. But these attacks only solidified my resolve. It was time to build the final part of my case. The key was the house. Brenda and Chloe were still living there. They had, I assumed, pooled whatever money they had to keep the lights on, but the mortgage payment was now almost 2 months overdue. The bank was sending daily notices. I had my lawyer, not Brian, but a real estate specialist from his firm, send a formal, notarized letter to the house. It was not a please pay letter. It was a notice to quit. It stated that as the owner of the property, I was terminating their at-will tenancy. They had 30 days to vacate the premises. The call came not even 10 minutes after the certified mail was signed for. It was Brenda. She wasn't crying. She was screaming. A notice to quit. An eviction. You are evicting your own mother from her home. It's my home, Mom, I said, my voice steel. I was on speakerphone in Brian's study. He was sitting opposite me taking notes. It's my asset, and I am liquidating it. You have 30 days. You monster, she shrieked. After everything I did for you, I raised you. This is how you repay me. How I repay you? I asked, my voice dangerously low. I have repaid you. I've repaid you to the tune of $1.2 million over the last decade. That's the house, the allowance, the emergencies, the cars, the vacations. I'm done. The bank is done. You can't do this, she sobbed. Where will we go, Chloe? Chloe is a wreck. She hasn't stopped crying. That, I said, is no longer my concern. Chloe is 28. You are 59. You are both able-bodied adults. You will figure it out. I paused. Or you won't, but you will not do it in my house. I hung up. Brian looked at me. Are you okay? I am, I said, and I was surprised to find that I meant it. I feel light. But the spell wasn't fully broken. Not yet. 2 weeks later, with only 16 days left on the eviction notice, Chloe showed up at my apartment, unannounced. Brian was at work. I was just leaving for a meeting. She was waiting in the lobby, and she ambushed me by the elevators. Miranda, please, she said. She looked awful. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were desperate. She was wearing clothes I didn't recognize, probably the first time she'd worn something she'd actually paid for. I have nothing to say to you, Chloe. Please, Mom is. She's not well. She's talking about ending things. She says she has nothing left. The old, familiar guilt lanced through me. The one my mother had programmed into me since I was 16. You are the rock. You have to hold everyone together. If Mom is a danger to herself, you should call 911, I said, my voice shaking slightly. No. She needs you. She needs you to stop this. I'll do anything, she cried, grabbing my arm. I'll get a job, a real one. I'll pay you back. Just don't sell the house. Please, Miranda, don't do this to us. This was the final test. The last desperate play from the Enabling and Victim Handbook. Was I Miranda, the daughter, or was I Miranda, the adult? I looked at my sister, my abuser, the girl whose hurting I was supposed to ignore for my entire life. You're right, I said. You will get a job, and you will find your own apartment, but you will not be living in my house. You have 16 days. I pulled my arm from her grasp and stepped into the elevator. As the doors closed, I saw her slide to the floor of the lobby, sobbing. For a moment, I felt a pang of something, but it wasn't pity, it was disgust. The manipulation, the lies, they were so ingrained, she didn't even know she was doing it. The spell was broken, the case was built. The final confrontation was all that was left. The 30-day notice expired on a Tuesday. I had arranged for a moving crew and a locksmith to be at the house at 9:00 a.m. sharp. Brian and I arrived with them, along with 2 off-duty police officers I had hired for a civil standby. I would not be taking any chances. The house was dark, the curtains were drawn. My old key, of course, no longer worked. They had changed the locks. The locksmith got to work. As he was drilling the main lock, the door was yanked open. My mother stood there in her bathrobe, her hair wild. "You can't do this," she whispered, her eyes wide with a strange, blank terror. "I'm not leaving." "Mom, the notice is expired. You are now trespassing," I said, my voice flat. "Trespassing," she shrieked, her voice rising. "In my own home." "In my home," I corrected. "Now, please move aside. The movers are here to pack your things. They will be put in a storage unit in your name with the first month paid. After that, it's your responsibility." "No," she tried to slam the door. One of the officers put a hand on it. "Ma'am, you need to step aside," he said. From behind her, Chloe appeared. She was holding her phone, recording. "Get away from her. You're assaulting my mother. I'm recording this. You'll be all over the news." Brian stepped forward. "Go ahead," he said, smiling pleasantly. "My associate is also recording. The officers are here as neutral parties. You have been lawfully evicted. Every minute you remain, you are breaking the law." Chloe's face faltered. This wasn't the dramatic, abusive scene she had hoped to stage. It was a calm, orderly, and very legal proceeding. Brenda dissolved. She stumbled back into the foyer and sank onto the bottom stair, her hands covering her face, rocking back and forth. "My house, my house, my house." The movers, professional and impassive, began. They started in the living room, wrapping the furniture. Chloe followed them, still filming, screaming at them. "Don't touch that. That's antique. You'll be hearing from our lawyer." "You don't have a lawyer, Chloe," I said, walking past her into the kitchen. It was filthy. Dishes piled up, old food on the counters, the smell of defeat. The house I had kept pristine for years was a pigsty. I went to my father's old study, the room I had used as my first office. It was there I saw it. My old desk was gone. In its place was Chloe's influencer setup, ring lights, a new iMac. And on a whiteboard, a list. Contest Miranda's LLC, Mr. R. Prove emotional duress for house deed. Settle for 1.5 M plus house. They had never intended to apologize. They had never intended to change. They had simply escalated their attack from emotional manipulation to a full-blown legal assault funded by a con man. I took a picture of the whiteboard with my phone. What are you doing? Chloe was standing in the doorway, her phone lowered. She had seen what I was looking at. Just documenting, I said. This is quite a business plan. Settle for 1.5 M, you really think you're worth that, don't you? For the first time, all the rage and bluster left her. She just looked empty, pathetic. She deserves it, Chloe whispered. Mom, she deserves something, you have everything. I have what I earned, I said, walking toward her. I built my company while you were taking my money to go to Ibiza. I built my marriage while you were throwing champagne in my face. I built my life, Chloe. You just tried to steal it. I walked out of the study and found my mother, still on the stairs. I sat down a few feet from her. It's over, Mom, I said, not unkindly. All of this, it's done. She looked up, her eyes red. I'm your mother, Miranda. I love you. I know, I said, and that was the saddest part. I think in her own twisted way she did. But your love has a price tag, and I'm not paying it anymore. I stood up. I've arranged for a car. It will take you and Chloe to a long-stay hotel. I've paid for one. Week, that's it. That's the last dollar. What you do after that is up to you. Brenda didn't move. She just stared at the wall. And then, the final, triumphant moment. Chloe, seeing it was well and truly over, had one last card to play. A final, spiteful tantrum. Fine, she screamed, her voice echoing in the emptying foyer. Take it. Take this stupid, ugly house. I hope you're happy, Miranda. I hope you're happy being all alone because you'll never see us again. You're not my sister. You're nothing. She grabbed a framed photo from the wall, a photo of me, her, and Mom from years ago. She raised it over her head, intending to smash it. And I just laughed, a real genuine laugh. She stopped, her arms frozen in the air. What's so funny? You, I said, shaking my head. You still think that's a threat. You still think the silent treatment is some great punishment. Chloe, that's what I want. You never seeing me again, that's not a punishment. That's the reward. Her face went slack. It was the final, devastating blow. Her last weapon, her last piece of leverage, our family bond, was utterly useless. I turned to Brian. I'm done here, let's go. We walked out the front door, past the movers, past the quiet police officers, and into the bright morning sun. As I got in the car, I heard the photo frame finally shatter on the hardwood floor behind me. I didn't even flinch. The downfall was not as swift as it was in movies. It was a slow, quiet, and pathetic fizzle. The house, my house, was emptied, cleaned, and listed by the end of the week. It sold in 3 days for cash, well over the asking price. I took the entire profit and rolled it into a trust for Brian and my future. The week at the hotel I'd paid for came and went. I learned through the grapevine, my aunt, who had finally called to apologize after hearing my side of the story, what happened next. Brenda, with no other options, had cashed in her small retirement fund, the one she had been saving, to put a deposit on a small, 2-bedroom apartment in a less than desirable part of town. She had to get a job as a receptionist at a dental office to make ends meet. Chloe, the influencer, had her convertible repossessed. She, too, was forced to get a job. She was now a barista at the very Starbucks that had once declined her card. The irony was not lost on me. Mr. Reynolds, the disbarred lawyer, was in fact brought up on new charges. Brian's firm had quietly passed their file to the district attorney, and the photo I took of Chloe's whiteboard was a key piece of evidence showing intent to commit fraud. He was facing real jail time. Chloe was, I'm sure, terrified she would be implicated, but I had no interest in pursuing that. My victory wasn't about jailing her, it was about freeing me. My professional network, which my mother had always dismissed, became my fortress. I had Nora and Pamela over for dinner at our new home, a beautiful, modern place Brian and I picked out together. So, Pamela said, raising her glass of wine, to boundaries. And to spreadsheets, Nora added, clinking her glass against mine, which, I must say, are looking much healthier these days. We laughed. About 6 months after the eviction, I received a letter. It was from Brenda. It wasn't an email or a text, but a handwritten, 10-page letter. It was a mess. It was pages and pages of self-pity, of I don't know what I did to deserve this, of Chloe misses her sister, and I'm just an old woman all alone. But buried in the middle, on page 7, were the 2 words I had waited my entire life to hear. I'm sorry. It was followed by, I'm sorry you felt this way, which, as Pamela pointedly reminded me, was a non-apology. But it was a start. It was the first crack in her lifelong wall of denial. I didn't write back. Instead, I took the letter, went to my new, clean, quiet office, and put it in a file labeled Family. Then I closed the drawer. My life with Brian is quiet, it's stable, it's happy. My company is thriving. We're talking about starting a family of our own. My peace is hard-won, and I protect it fiercely. The reconciliation, if it ever comes, will be on my terms. It will involve years of therapy on their part. It will involve them, for the first time, taking responsibility. But my story is no longer about them. It's not about their hurting or their needs. My story is about the quiet, simple action of clicking cancel. It's about realizing that family is not a suicide pact. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. I deserved my wedding, I deserved my husband, I deserved my success, and I deserved my peace. The phone calls have stopped, the emails have ceased. The silence is finally golden.